eternal heroes and dying worlds. These are the bones of Crowfall. It's a game about the onslaught of time and the insurmountable destruction that comes with it. Your character takes a role as a crow, an immortal hero's soul in a ceaseless war between gods for power that spans over many worlds and campaigns. The ultimate goal? Control of the Allfather's throne and victory over the lesser gods before each world is consumed by a mysterious undead scourge called the Hunger. I've spent the last 2 weeks waging war for the gods of chaos against the gods of order and balance as a crow. I'm here today to share these experiences with you, for better or for worse. Before we dive in, I just want to say if you enjoy the video and want to see some of our upcoming Crowfall content, you know what to do with the buttons down there. If you're new to the channel, pushing those buttons just might help to positively impact the lives of a furry friend, because at every major subscriber goal we donate to local animal shelters. Next up at 500 is a $100 donation to the Arizona Humane Society. Hopefully I can give you a thorough look at my first experiences in Crowfall and help you decide whether or not you're going to try it when it launches in 2 weeks on July 6th. If you're an MMORPG fan and you're looking for a new home, I'll be talking specifically about Crowfall vs. New World at the end of the video after having spent a couple weeks inside both of them at this point. Well, let's get into it. Crowfall has a pretty rich and in-depth character creation process. It has an impressive amount of races available, and each one provides distinct benefits for fighting and or crafting with their race-specific abilities and attributes. As you select a race, you can see which type of classes that race can play. Currently there are 11 different classes, with each class having a subset of 3 different promotions to choose from, and then again after that, 3 different domains within that specific promotion. This allows for very high degree of customization to player tastes within each character class. Admittedly, this can seem overwhelming at first, but don't be afraid to try whatever you feel like, because the leveling process to the soft cap is very fast. Currently, it only takes about 3 to 6 hours to hit 30, depending on your playstyle and character, so you're not hurting yourself by experimenting. Even if you get there and you want to respec, you can for a fee, or for free, but only if you have VIP. If you want to plan your character out without being in-game, there is a functional wiki for character templates at crocane.wiki. Yeah, that's a thing. After you've created your character, you'll be taken to the World Select screen. And this is where things start to get really interesting. When you first see it, the screen is pretty confusing. Just think of the different campaigns in each world as servers which your character can transfer between for a cost, each of them having different loot rules, scoring system, and rates of decay. Yep, I said rates of decay. It's not just worlds either. One of the most interesting things about Crowfall is that literally everything in the game, outside of the player-created worlds and characters themselves, decay and eventually cease to exist. We'll circle back to that concept in a moment. For now, the only world you need to be concerned with is the starter world, which should have multiple gods for each campaigns, separated by geographical locations in it. Campaigns begin in the spring and progress through the seasons. As winter approaches, a blight named the Hunger, aka Pumpkin Spice, spreads across the land, potentially covering resource nodes and making things more difficult to gather important resources, presumably elevating competition for the most important resources on the map and creating plenty of opportunities for world PvP. Obviously we're not worried about that when we're just starting, but it's a pretty cool mechanic, especially when you get into the more dangerous worlds later on. Now that we're actually in the world, things look a little more familiar. A temple setting featuring ominous piles of skulls and familiar golden question marks above talking hamsters that are going to show you the secrets of the universe. As you move around, you'll notice the graphics are similar to other MMORPGs, and things seem to run pretty smooth in the starting areas even when they're full of people. You're sent on pretty standard kill because XYZ reason quests, and there are some pretty basic crafting missions pretty quick out of the gate. The movement and combat system is pretty standard, beyond a few quirks like dodging and combos, which you'll also find in New World. In fact, you probably won't notice too many departures from the standard MMO experience until around level 5 when you open up your first discipline slot. But you probably won't even notice this until around level 10 when the tutorial leads you to the vendor to purchase this in order to fill the slot. The discipline system is another layer in the character customization, and it also represents the first of many departures from the standard MMO experience. You'll find minor and major disciplines which supplement your combat abilities, and exploration disciplines which determine your gathering or crafting skills at various vendors in the Earth Temple where you started. What isn't immediately clear is that you can improve these disciplines through crafting, leading to drastic changes in their effectiveness. Initially, I was actually discouraged with the gathering because I was unaware of this mechanic, and I assumed that the small amounts of materials I was getting initially was indicative of what I would be getting later in the game as well. But my ignorance was definitely not because I clicked through all of the quest texts and didn't read anything, because what kind of animal would do that? But as it turns out, leveling these exploration disciplines to a point where you are getting more materials from your nodes is not that difficult. This particular part of the game was such a different experience from the regular mindless smashing a bunch of level 1 nodes so that I could go to a level 2 node and mindlessly smash that one. I didn't even notice that the discipline needed to be leveled or should be leveled, and that this system was not your same old linear progression of node level or type. There are even belt slots which help to improve harvesting and crafting as well. So, don't be discouraged by initial gathering quantities, and don't waste a whole lot of time gathering during the tutorial either. We'll have a separate harvesting video later explaining why and all the details. As you continue to progress through the tutorial, you'll notice your items take decay damage. This is irreversible, and there are no repair mechanics in the game. Everything from the most powerful crafted gear in the game, and even your mount, will eventually decay with use and break. This seems daunting at first, but I believe this mechanic is in place to force an emphasis on crafting, which in turn forces gathering, and subsequently leads to PvP over open world resources. On the bright side, the crafted items do have a much higher durability than the dropped items, especially if they're of good quality, so they last much longer, and of course, as your crafting improves, so does the durability. I noticed pretty quickly that the progression to the soft level cap of 30 doesn't take very long at all, and this is where I really started having fun. Once you're 30, I highly recommend going and looking for trouble, because the world PvP is really where this game shines. To find that trouble, you're going to need to know how the map works. The separate maps where PvP can happen are called adventures. There's one adventure map for each faction, and then Sky Point in the middle, which is where most of the fighting occurs. The reason being the resource nodes in this area are a much higher rank, which means a higher chance for rare resources, so everyone's fighting over them. Be sure to check your inventory and make deposits regularly, because you currently drop 50% of your gold whilst in the faction-based adventures, and 100% of your gold in Sky Point. Later on in the campaigns, you'll drop even your entire inventory when you die, making these maps very high risk, but potentially very rewarding. Keep your eye open for an event timer in each area. These timers indicate when structures become capturable, and that's when the real fun begins. It can also indicate that there's a hotspot in the zone, which leads to increased loot and, of course, more PvP. The best experiences I've had in the game to this point in my short Crowfall career have been defending and assaulting these structures. Even with the population dwindling for the wipe, there have been sometimes up to 80 different people participating in some of these battles all at one time, and there's even 3 different factions fighting for the same keep at times. It's a blast to be a part of, even if you end up spending most of your time on your back like I do in a few of these fights you'll see coming up. It really is the best part of the game in my opinion, and unfortunately I think some people aren't going to have the patience to get there to experience it. My advice is, stick with it long enough to participate in a full-scale battle like this, and then make your evaluation. I think you'll find yourself pleasantly surprised, as I was. There's even a bunch I haven't even been able to experience yet, which makes me pretty excited to see what the future holds for the game. There's a Battle Royale mode, a bunch of endgame content that I've not even touched, like factories for crafting and vessel upgrades that let you go past the soft level cap all the way to 35 at the time of this video. So, I'm definitely invested now, and I'm looking forward to unraveling the mysteries of the Crowfall universe. Back at the beginning of the video I mentioned I would talk a little bit about New World versus Crowfall because I know a lot of you are looking at both and trying to decide on one or the other considering how close their release dates are together. What I can tell you is that they're very different experiences. Without getting too much into detail about those specific differences, I think the main thing that will set the populations apart is the PvP versus PvE preference. New World is a very controlled environment with regards to PvP. You literally never have to PvP if you don't want to. You can wander about aimlessly killing AI and farming until the cows come home. While the game itself is beautiful and the PvE is very well done, there's just no it factor. At least not for me. I can't get excited about games where there's next to no risk and minimal challenge. That's where Crowfall separates itself, in my opinion. Even if you look past every other aspect that makes it unique, at the core, nearly every mechanic is driving people towards PvP. This, in conjunction with the very real consequences for dying in the game, make it far more exciting and challenging. So, that being said, I'll see you guys in Crowfall on July 6th. Be sure to say hi if you see me.